2024 has been a very strange year for Nintendo. We got confirmation that the Switch 2 is real and coming soon. We got leaks of some of the freakiest Pokemon stories that are official, by the way. And we got the launch of the most mediocre streaming platform, Nintendo Music. With such a small library of soundtracks being slowly drip-fed to us week after week, it is my duty to provide to you the definitive Nintendo Music tier list to ensure your time is not wasted listening to garbage and only bangers like this one. So that's why today I will be ranking every single Nintendo Music soundtrack from worst to best. Let's go.
Nintendo Music.
Alright, starting off with number 30, we got Brain Age. Why is Brain Age even here? It's like they're trying to insult us by telling us that we're stupid and we need to play Brain Age. And also, they added this soundtrack after the app was launched, when they could have added stuff like Wind Waker, Twilight Princess, even Super Mario 64 wasn't even on the service. And for the songs, they're all pretty mid, pretty bad. They're kind of boring and not a whole lot to them. So this is why this is the worst soundtrack by far. Coming in at 29, Nintendogs, which is also a boring soundtrack. Hell no! It almost sounds like it wasn't meant for the DS because the instruments just seem so compressed and harsh and noisy. Like it was almost made for the Wii and then they had to shrink it down to fit the DS. But this was an early DS game, so maybe the composers just weren't used to the hardware yet, but it just doesn't sound good. It doesn't sound like it should be on the DS. And as far as the app goes, there's way better soundtracks than this. Next up, we got Dr. Mario. This soundtrack is pretty empty. There's really only two songs, Chill and Fever. And I'm sure most people would rather listen to the Smash remixes of these songs than the Game Boy original versions. And even then, people might want to listen to the NES version with the different sound chip. Personally, I prefer the Game Boy version. Here's a little comparison. You can tell me in the comments which one you like better. Moving on, we got Tomodachi. This was just a super strange game to include a Japanese exclusive Tomodachi game this early on when there's, of course, big hitters like Super Mario World not included. It's just really strange, but it is okay. I mean, it's mostly just little silly tracks that you'd listen to in the background as your me is doing some weird stuff, whatever goes on in these games. I don't know, like you get married or something. You know, it's silly, it's fun, but it's not really good. I don't know. So that's why it's F tier.
Nintendo Music.
Next up, I might get some flack for this one, but we got Pikmin 4. It's a really low-key soundtrack, really atmospheric, which fits the game alright, but it's not really something you want to listen to outside of the game. But that one drum track goes pretty hard. It sounds like that one Fortnite emote. Coming in at 25, we've got Breath of the Wild. Breath of the Wild has a lot of the same issues that Pikmin does, but I do think it's a little better. I really like the Guardian battle theme. And of course that theme when you're running onto the hill as soon as you get out of the cave is really amazing. I still get goosebumps from that. That was such an amazing moment in the game and of course in the E3 trailer. Moving on, we got Wave Race 64. Where is it? Oh, here it is. This game is also a weird inclusion to me. This is one of those games that every retro YouTuber will tell you should go play. It's a hidden gem. But I don't know if anybody actually does. It's okay, it's mid, but there's just so many better racing soundtracks on this service. My favorite song on this one is definitely Drake Lake. Drake Lake. Okay, we need to move on. The next soundtrack is Metroid. So there are two different versions, and to be honest, there's like 3 songs that are different between them. The Famicom Disk System version is supposed to have better sound, but to be honest, it sounds really, really similar. So I don't understand why they're both here. I say just pick one, but let me know in the comments what you think about this, if you really think one sounds better than the other, or you prefer one more. Anyways, there's only 12 tracks, and it really did lay out some of the good melodies and ideas for how a Metroid game should sound, but it's just so limited by the NES. It just falls flat. It can sound pretty annoying in some of the tracks, and really repetitive, so that's why it's here. Later Metroid games definitely have better soundtracks, without a doubt. But this was a good start, nonetheless. Next up,
Nintendo Music.
we've got The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword. If I had to describe this soundtrack in one word, it would be epic. It's a good soundtrack, a lot of epic songs, and of course the Groose theme is amazing. But I just prefer other Zelda soundtracks like Majora's Mask or Twilight Princess, which aren't even on the service, but they should be. Anyways, next one, we got Star Fox 64. This might sound strange, but it sounds super similar to Ocarina of Time soundtrack. I can hear the same instruments, especially the brass, strings, and drums. Unlike that soundtrack, this soundtrack is pretty forgettable. The only true standout songs are Star Wolf's theme and the opening theme. And I know I'll probably get crucified in the comments for saying that. Like, oh, you only like them because they're in Smash. Well, yeah, I mean, Smash usually puts the best songs in the game, and those are the two best songs. This is the definitive tier list that is 100% correct, so if you disagree, you are wrong. So don't even bother making that comment because you're just making a fool out of yourself. Anyways, it's pretty mid, so that's why it's C tier. Next up, we got Fire Emblem, every Smash player's worst nightmare. Anyways, the soundtrack, it's pretty mid. A lot of the songs are pretty samey. They all use the same instruments, and they're not very exciting or catchy. They're kind of boring, and of course, Strike and Together We Ride are bangers. And yes, they're in Smash also. Coming in right above Fire Emblem, we got Super Mario Bros. Wonder. So this is a game that I'm pretty conflicted on. Same with Tears of the Kingdom. I know it's good, but there are just so many dumb things within the game that really hold it back from being that, amazing, groundbreaking experience. But anyways, about the soundtrack, it's just mid. It's just so bland and boring. It's not exciting or super catchy like Super Mario World, or you're not gonna really remember a lot of the melodies like you will in any other Mario game. So that's why it's here. Anyways, next up we got Super Mario Bros. Man, this soundtrack is nothing short of iconic. I mean, that main theme and the underground theme, the water theme, Starman theme, all amazing. It's good, but of course there are better renditions of every song in this soundtrack. But it definitely is still a good soundtrack. Definitely some good stuff in there, but it's just, it's just 40 years old, Better stuff has come out.
Nintendo Music.
Next up, at the bottom of B tier, we've got Animal Crossing New Horizons. I originally had this at F tier just because I hate Animal Crossing so much, but then I actually listened to the songs and they were pretty good. I had to listen for 12 hours straight. I had to listen to 407 tracks, which is absolutely crazy that there are that many in this game, and it's not like a compilation soundtrack. Truly amazing. And of course, this soundtrack has some bangers, like all the KK Slider songs. He was doing Friday Night Funkin' songs before they were cool. And you might be thinking, Friday Night Funkin', there's no way KK Slider sounds like Friday Night Funkin'. But listen to this song. And now listen to this Friday Night Funkin' brain rot slop. Yeah, I told you so. Next up, we've got Donkey Kong Country 2. Diddy? Wait, like P. Diddy? I'll stop. This soundtrack is actually pretty dark. You might not think a Donkey Kong soundtrack could be dark, but a lot of the tracks are pretty depressing and melancholic and pretty dreadful. And of course, this soundtrack does include one of the best Nintendo songs of all time, Bramble Blast. This song is so soothing I could call them even the craziest iPad kids. Forced Interlude is also a nice track as well. Above DKC 2, we've got the Wii channels. Now, I know you're probably just gonna comment Zoomer in the comments, but whatever. The Wii channels were just such a curveball that nobody expected to be included on this service, and it was a really nice surprise. The songs are all pleasant. They give a nice, almost shopping mall vibe, but like a good mall with like cool stores and not Hot Topic. There's a little bit for everyone here, but I really enjoyed the ambient songs in the Forecast channel and the News channel.
Hey, want to listen to some tunes?
And who could forget the classic Wii Shop channel and Me channel? It would be nice if Nintendo added some more obscure channels, since there were so many unique ones, but the selection here is good enough for now. Next up, we got some real banger soundtracks. We got Splatoon 2 and Splatoon 3. Both these soundtracks are great. I love the gibberish made-up language that they use in the tracks, and of course the fake inner world bands, which are always a fun treat whenever a game does this. It really builds the world in just such a smart way. But for which one I prefer Splatoon 3. Splatoon 3 just has more good tracks. I like the more metal vibe that it's going for. My favorite fake band within the game is definitely Seaside. I love their songs. But you could interchange Splatoon 3 and 2 and, you know, I wouldn't care. They're just so similar. They're both built off the same blocks, but they just go for different genres, different styles. So both great soundtracks, but we gotta move on to the next game, which is Metroid Prime. This is a good soundtrack. Really builds the world. Amazing battle music, amazing atmospheric music.
Someone cooked here.
I mean, it doesn't really get much better for Metroid than this. It reminds me of playing that one stage in Brawl with the Parasite Queen that would spin around randomly. Good times, good times.
Nintendo Music.
Next up, we got Super Mario World 2 Yoshi's Island. This soundtrack is fun and playful, and it fits the whole storybook aesthetic of the game very well. It's a very different Mario soundtrack from other Mario games, which is a big plus. It definitely gave Yoshi his own flavor, his own style, and the instruments used in all the songs are so iconic. Of course, those beautiful horns. And it's just such an iconic soundtrack. I mean, how could you not like this soundtrack? Maybe if you're a person that doesn't like the Yoshi's Island soundtrack, that's probably how you couldn't like it. Moving on to the next banger game, we got Donkey Kong Country. I like this one way more than Donkey Kong Country 2. I think the sounds are more iconic, more catchy. Simeon Segu, Bonus Rooms Blitz, and of course Gangplank Galleon. I mean, these are way more iconic than anything in Donkey Kong Country 2, and I think they're better too. Anyways, this is the perfect soundtrack to go along with funny monkey jumpy game. Next up, we got Kirby's Dream Land back in the day when he was white. This soundtrack fits the Game Boy sound just so well. I mean, every song just feels like it was tailor-made for the Game Boy sound chip, and it sounds absolutely incredible. Definitely the best Game Boy soundtrack, and it still holds up today despite its age. Pretty much every song in this game has been remixed or remade in other Kirby games, and that just goes to show how good and how impactful this soundtrack really was. You know how much I love you, Sakurai, don't you? Mwah. Next up, we got The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. It's Ocarina of Time. I mean, what else is there to say? You've heard the songs, you know what it is, and without a doubt, it's one of the N64's best soundtracks. It's epic, it's iconic, and it's pleasant to listen to. Even though I like this soundtrack a lot, I really like Majora's Mask soundtrack way more.
Maybe someone's don't like me, but because maybe I'm too good. I don't know why.
Next soundtrack, Wii Sports. The soundtrack is so catchy. Every song will have you nodding your head or tapping your foot along to it. It's mostly chill tracks, but there's some absolute heat on this soundtrack, like the boxing results, tennis results. It just reminds me of some good old times when the Wii and its motion controls were just cutting edge technology and everyone thought it was amazing. Above Wii Sports, we got Super Mario Odyssey. Odyssey, yesy. On top of being an incredible game, the soundtrack is also just as good. There's simply so much to love about this soundtrack. It's so jam-packed with music, it's unbelievable. And of course those vocal tracks, truly amazing stuff.
Can I sing a song for you? When the moon hits your eye, like a big pizza pie.
Really gets you hyped up and really makes you want to do the Odyssey, you know? Nothing much better than that. Except for the next soundtrack, Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. I mean, dang. These are good, even if the game kinda, Anyways, the soundtrack is good. Like, pretty much every Pokemon soundtrack. I mean, this is one of those franchises that you know you're gonna listen to the soundtrack and it's gonna be good, like Sonic. Of course, it still gets mogged by the DS and GBA soundtracks, but it definitely scratches that Pokemon itch. The highlights are the battle themes, of course, which are each unique to represent the trainer, and they're all enjoyable. And what's up with the Cassiopeia? How do you say that?
Why play Cassiopeia mid? Well, she has amazing sustained damage.
And what's up with that Cassiopeia battle theme? It's absolutely insane. Definitely a good soundtrack for the top of A tier.
Nintendo Music.
Now it's time for the cream of the crop, the bangers a la banger, the Michael Jordans, the LeBron James. You know it's S tier. To start it off, we got Kirby Star Allies. Kind of a sleeper soundtrack. I mean, this soundtrack really is amazing. Kirby soundtracks are always good, don't get me wrong. And this one's definitely no exception. There are plenty of new tunes and old classics to enjoy here. Really just super awesome Kirby music. Can't get much better than that. Except you can with the next game, Super Mario 64. Wow. What an iconic game. What a classic soundtrack. Truly some amazing bangers here as you run around every painting, you know, doing stuff. Every track is great. Great variety. There's some more up-tempo stuff, some chill stuff, and of course, even some soothing stuff, like with the Piranha Plants Lullaby. However, there is one big problem with this soundtrack on Nintendo Music. It sounds different than it does in the game. Take a listen. What do you think? Maybe my personalized copy is just a bit different from the official one Nintendo used to rip this soundtrack. So let me know if you think the Eternal Plexus is playing tricks on me again, or if it sounds exactly the same as it does in the game. Leave a comment. I'm about to leave some comments too on this next soundtrack, an absolute gem of a soundtrack, F-Zero X. This soundtrack is full of fast-paced rock and roll metal bangers. Makes you want to go fast. Gotta go fast. This soundtrack is the definition of cool. However, even though this soundtrack is amazing, it's actually incomplete if you didn't know this. In Japan, they released the F-Zero X expansion for the Nintendo 64 DD, and this had a couple more tracks. So just add these, Nintendo. I mean, there's really no reason not to. And there's really no reason not to listen to this next soundtrack, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. Oof, this soundtrack is packed with amazing new live performance songs like Dolphin Shoals and some old remixes of classic tracks. This soundtrack is filled with bangers, new and old. Of course, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe got pumped with so much DLC, and every one of those songs are included on Nintendo Music, so there's a huge selection of tracks to listen to. And they're all amazing, so definitely S-tier soundtrack.
That was fantastic.
And at number 1, we've got Super Mario Galaxy. This is one of the GOAT soundtracks in anything. Video games, TV, anything. It's that good. Super Mario Galaxy is the type of game to have a song that makes you rethink your whole life, and it's called Loop-de-Poop-de Galaxy. They capture that space vibe so perfectly within the music. That venturous, lonely vibe. It's amazing. And of course, the epic tracks are unreal. And it's not just all these lonely, spacey tracks. There's some more upbeat, kind of classic sounding Mario tracks too. I mean, how could you hate a soundtrack that includes Luigi, you're so freaking sexy? Definitely the best soundtrack on Nintendo Music. Might be one of the best overall Nintendo soundtracks. It doesn't really get much better than this.
Look at this, it's perfect!
Alright, that's gonna do it for the ranking video. Hope you enjoyed, but I want to leave you with one last thing. So to wrap things up, I'd like to recommend some underrated Nintendo soundtracks that Nintendo should definitely add.
I am Earthbound.